Okay, my paper is very philosophical, so the paper is very conceptual and theoretical. So, this paper tried to clarify the Gibsonian concept of information and draw some philosophical metaphysical implication from it. As well known, Gibson strongly criticized the indirect perception theory, including the causal theory, for presupposing that the stimulus information available to the senses is ambiguous and need to be enriched. Instead, Gibson proposed that perceptual information is specific to environmental properties. The information relates one-to-one to it. But recently, some researchers like Chemero or Witthagen cast doubt on the Gibsonian concept of information as specification and propose alternative conception of perceptual information based on developmental system theories. They claim that there is no information out there in the environment, and the information defines a kind of relation, not a kind of substance. For them, the information a matter in a pattern in the array conveys grow out of the relation between its pattern and its perceptual or exploratory processes. The relational concept of information thus prevents the introduction of internal process that determine what environmental property is perceived. So they remain in the framework of ecological psychology, but different from Gibsonian theory. But on the other hand, according to Gibson, information is simply out there where the perceptual object exists. If so, what is the difference between the object itself and the information of it? Or between existence and information? In admitting some reasons in Witthagen and Orr's objection to the Gibsonian concept of information, I will reconsider and interpret Gibson's claim that information is out there in the environment from a philosophical point of view. My paper is mostly theoretical and philosophical and conceptual. So, what is information? The word information that Gibson used in his theory is very different from the ordinary meaning, as you know. The word information was derived from the Latin verb informare, to inform, in the sense of to give form to the mind, or to discipline, or to instruct, or to teach. The Latin verb informare remains to give form, or to form an idea of. The word informatio means concept or idea. Nowadays, information is often regarded as a type of input to an organism or system. Information is any type of pattern that influences the formation or transformation of other patterns. So there is two conceptions of information. According to Yates, information is a concept with two clearly separable senses. One is a strict technical sense basic to engineering applications. Second is a more metaphorical senses as meaning. In another dichromatization, the two basic forms of information is messages are selective or descriptive, but I skip this explanation. So what is Gibson's concept of information? I quote, information refers to the specification of the observer's environment, not to the specification of the observer's receptors or sense organs. The qualities of an object are specified by information, and the qualities of the receptor and nerves are specified by sensations. Information about the world cut right across the qualities of senses. So words and pictures convey information carried or transmitted, but the information in the sea of energy around each of us, luminous or mechanical or chemical energy, is not conveyed. It is simply there. Shannon's concept of information applies to the telephone hookup and radio broadcast in an elegant way, but not, I think, to the first-hand perception of being in the world. to what the baby gets when first it opens its eyes. So information is of perception, unhappily, cannot be defined and measured by Croce-Shannon's information can be. So this is from Gibson's theory. So according to Gibson, information is detected through medium while the information is out there in the environment. Information cannot be transmitted. Gibson said information is out there to be perceived, where information exists, the place where the thing exists. The question is what? The difference between the object itself and the information of it, and between existence and information. In order to answer this question, we have to know, refer to the ontology which Gibson implicitly presupposes. So what is Gibson's ontology? Gibson said, very important phrase, I quote, "The object offers what it does because it is what it is." So to be sure, we define what it is in the terms of ecological physics instead of physical physics, and it therefore possesses meaning and value to begin with. So here Gibson suggests a new type of ontology, not so new, but new for psychologists, ontology assuming that properties of objects are nothing but causal powers. All their reality is to an object is power to be affected by other objects. What the ecological environment offers is meaning and value to animals, but meaning and value are also powers too. So this ontology is pragmatic ontology. That means to exist is to act. To have, that means to exist. Existing is to have, having the power or the force or the effect. What is regarded as categorical or primary properties such as extension, weight, solidity, or shape can be regarded as also causal powers. For example, weight is the resistance to the acceleration or resistance by Higgs particles, right? And solidity is electromagnetic power fields. So everything is power. So meaning of the existence is nothing but this power. The meaning of the world is also power. It's a elocutional power in conversation. So this is a pragmatical ontology. And this kind of view, pragmatic ontology on the properties, leads us to the ontology of events. Because acting, having power, is an event, is not substance. Any being is an event or are processes. Processes are a continuation of events. The ontology that Gibson adopted instead of atomism or reductionism is the ontology of events. So I quote, he said, "We should begin thinking of the events as a primary realities." Okay. The existence is to having certain forces to the surroundings. Information is to know to what object acts to its surroundings. So what is perception? To get the information of the object, the perceiver needs to be exposed to the causal effect, or that is stimulations, from the object. But for Gibson, perception never be stimulation from the outside, which forces an animal to react. Perception is itself act. Perception is the act of picking up or detect some imbalance from the changing flow of stimulation. If we use Greek philosophical terms, the flux of stimulation is matter, hure, and the invariance embedded in the flux is form, morphe, or eidos. But as for Aristotle, not Plato, form, eidos, is embedded in the matter, hure, and inseparable from hure. So perception is the picking up eidos from the flux of hure through the active exploration of perceptual system. Stimulations are media for making appear the structure of the environment. So object of perception is a structured environment and its component which concerns with animals' actions. Eidos is perceptual in the perceptual world is not a stimulation but the environmental structure vested with meaning and or values that is acting or having forces its surrounding at ecological level, not a microphysical level. So structured environment which are embedded as a form in the causal effect from that environment don't have themselves any causal effect on animals, or non-animal. So this is like this. So upper figure is object stimulate animals. The lower figure is Gibson's perception theory. So consideration till now lead us to think that perception is not a dyadic relation between object and subject, or matter and mind, but it is picking up process of certain inter-object relation in the environment. I would like to regard this relation as a triadic, more than triadic is the correct answer, relation. The inter-object relation can be spatial, of course, temporal, or causal. The profile of the object already indicates a reference to the other hidden profiles of that object. To perceive a form of things is picking up the structure that is related to whole of the environment which that object is embedded. So like this. The triadic means like this. Of course, it's not three, but we perceiver and the inter-objective relationship is the correct expression. We should interpret this Gibsonian concept of information as a concept with the original meaning of giving form or organizing. Information is the structure of environment itself, which perceptual act of an animal bring into relief. Information does not come to us, but is waiting there to be shaped by the perceiver. The formal structure of environment is a real existing property of the world. At the same time, it is the information which attracts the interest of an animal and guides its behaviors. So this is existing is already relational because it's the acting. Existing is the acting, and can be dyadic relation between two terms of object and acting object and acted object. So, but information is a triadic relation, that is perceiver's relation to inter-objective relations. So information is an effect from the environment, but it's objectified with growth by activities of the perceiver. Information is the being, existence, made annulled or ineffective, made annulled and made ineffective or passive by the active perceiver. Gibson does not distinguish by intention being from knowing, and existence from recognition, from ontology, from epistemology. So that perceiver perceives the inter-objective relations, and from each object there is some causation from object. So perception event with triadic terms. The information about the perceiver is included in the perception of the environment. Gibson said, the optical information to specify accompanies the optical information to specialize the environment, but two sources of information coexist. The one could not exist without the other. The supposed separated realm on subjective and object, he said, are actually only one pose of attention. The dualism of observer and the environment is unnecessary, said Gibson. So perception is essentially attention to selectively flow some aspect of environment, bring it into relief, and continue to have relation with that aspect. So conclusions. So perceptual information is out there. The object of perception are structured environment in which the perceiver is already embedded. Perception is the action to pick up inter-objective relation in the environment through being immersed in the sea of through being perceivers being immersed in a sea of simulations. So perception is not a dyadic relationship between object and subject, but is a picking process of certain inter-objective relationship in the environment. Thus, perception is a triadic relation, which can be compared with a semiotic relation among the interpreter, a sign, and object. So So this is why information is the meaning of environment, or value of the environment. And the environment is meaningful for an animal perceiver. Not so environment is meaningful and not stimulation-full. So information is an aspect of being, existence, the objectified existence, or annulled acting, strange expression, but by the active animal perceivers. Thank you so much.